Hello and welcome back to another masterclass. I'm Tanya Johnson, registered psychologist, registered play therapist, co-founder of the Institute of Child Psychology. Today, I am so excited for those who don't know her yet to introduce you to Hunter Clarke-Fields. Welcome, Hunter.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
We've been huge fans for a really long time. I'll introduce you quickly and then we'll hop right in.
Okay.
Hunter Clarke-Fields is a dynamic, engaging speaker who captivates audiences on TV and in front of thousands worldwide. Once a self-proclaimed parenting yeller, Hunter transformed her approach and went on to write the international best-selling sensation, Raising Good Humans, which we're going to talk about a ton today. You can see how well-worn my copy is. She's also the creator of the highly acclaimed Mindful Parenting course and teacher training program, as well as host of the popular Mindful Mama podcast. Welcome, Hunter.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I know, Hunter, that as soon as I said self-proclaimed parenting yeller, that a whole lot of parents' ears just kind of peeked up and went, oh, hold on, let me listen a little bit more. Tell us about that.
Yeah. When my daughter was 18 months old, 2 years old, and started to talk back to me, is kind of how I saw it at the time. Yeah, my temper came out pretty big time. And I think I was dealing with some anxiety that I wasn't really facing, and there was all kinds of things happening. But when she would have some big upset feelings, it would really trigger me. It would trigger my temper. And this was exactly, of course, how I had specifically, intentionally chosen not to parent my child because my father had a bad temper when I was a kid. So I could really see oh, this is so frustrating. This is exactly what I am not choosing. I am clearly not choosing this. I would like to choose not to do this. Yet it is still happening. So what's happening? Because we tend to talk about things like that, the way we communicate in some ways as a choice. And a lot of times it's not a choice. And what I could really see, it's reactivity. I'm really not consciously choosing to do this. This is reactivity. And I had to sort of dive into why that was, because I was so frustrated because I was having this temper with my daughter. So I would look to parenting coaches and experts and say, okay, well, how should I respond? And I would learn great ways to respond. And then I would feel doubly guilty. I would feel worse because now I knew how I should respond and I still couldn't do it. So I had to go back to, I had started reading about mindfulness when I was a teenager to help me. I'm a really highly sensitive person, help me. And I had started briefly for about a year before she was born, mindfulness meditation practice that had helped me enormously. So I really had to go back to that. And it was really sort of this real peak time of research about mindfulness meditation, and MBSR was growing and things like that. So I really saw that there was, in the mindfulness world, there were things that were starting to be understood about our nervous system and our brain, our reactivity, and calming that really needed to come into this parenting world in order for me to access anything I was learning about parenting.
Yeah. What I love about that is I think it's so relatable. I think, people are so aware of lots of the different tools out there, lots of the different parenting books and what to do when your kid has a meltdown in the middle of the grocery store. But that guilt, that shame that you speak about, I think is experienced by so many people because we have that trigger response. And then we go, oh no, now what have I done? I've totally messed up my child forever. This isn't what I wanted. Yes. And then it just becomes almost like this roly-poly of negativity around our parenting experience with our child.
Absolutely. And that piece about sort of the shame and this harsh self-talk that would happen, I would tell myself I'm a terrible parent. And then that would leave me feeling really isolated and incapacitated and terrible, so that the compassion piece of mindfulness was really huge. I had to really start to understand it and look and say, okay, well, I'm doing this thing that my father did. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I triggered by this? And I started to really see, as I just kind of grappled with it to understand it, when she has these big feelings, it feels in my body completely unacceptable in my bones. Like I have to change it, fix it, make it go, make it stop because it is so unacceptable. And that's the way it felt to me. And I could really see, oh, why does this feel this way to me? Well, because when I was little and I had these big upset feelings, I would get yelled at or spanked or whatever, right? Like there was a lot of rage and anger. So it really got ingrained in me. And then I was repeating the pattern. It was so frustrating. So, I really had to saw that, okay, I've got to deal with this first. This has to be number one before I can offer some choices or whatever the parenting coaches were telling me, right? Like I needed to deal with that. And I don't think I even realized, I needed to deal with that so that I could help her also calm down. It was like, okay, let me just deal with this fiery, flaming temper that is out of control.
Yeah. And what's so interesting, Hunter, do you have the one child or do you have?
I have 2 daughters. That daughter is now about to turn 18.
Wow. Yeah. What's so interesting, I find, is I've got two girls as well. And the one, when she cries, doesn't trigger the same response in me as when the other one cries. And it's a different type of cry. It's a different type of personality. But it's so interesting too to figure out with kids, you've got different trigger points with them. The one when she cries, I've had to work on feeling really anxious when she cries. So it's like the same thing. How do we help her? What do we need to do? So I really have to also kind of step back and go, hold on, this doesn't necessarily need to be fixed. What's happening right now? Whereas with the other one, I'm way calmer with her. It's like she cries and we're going to figure this out together, but it's two completely different responses to the girls when they cry.
Yeah, they come with, of course, their own personalities and their parenting circumstances are so different. Yeah, I was just talking to Jonathan Caspi, an expert on sibling development for the Mindful Mama podcast, and he was talking about how siblings are no more alike by objective measures than 2 random strangers on the streets. Because everything is so different. It's really interesting.
I love that. I think parents all over are going, yes, I agree, but without actually knowing it.
Yeah. It does make a lot of sense. And also by the time, your second child comes around, for me anyway, I'd really ingrained the idea of it's actually not a problem for her to have a tantrum or yell or be upset. So I was so much more relaxed. I was so much more accepting of whatever. And therefore, I don't know. But also my number one daughter is also a highly sensitive kid who definitely inherited some anxieties and sensitivities from both sides of the family.
I love it. So Hunter, I know as you talk about kind of those mindfulness approaches, and you said that you dabbled with it a little bit in your teens and then a little bit prior to actually coming to the realization that this needs to be foundational in my parenting practice. In your own journey, as you started to incorporate it, where did you even start? Because I think lots of people go, oh, do I need to find a class? Well, how do I even begin this?
I mean, for me, it was a long time. I got my first book by someone who had ended up becoming a real significant teacher in my life, the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, when I was 17, I guess, at the local Be Here Now books. And it was great. And that book provided me a lot of relief just to say oh, okay, this is possible. I'm, it provided a lot of grounding. Just reading this, it provided a lot of stability and clarity and grounding. And I really dove in more and read a lot more. It wasn't until I did a yoga teacher training 10 years later that I actually was able to sit down and do some mindfulness meditation on my own. Because it's hard. It's hard to find communities. There are sanghas and communities that do practice together all around the country and all around the world, but it's kind of hard to find them. It's not quite so obvious as, if you're trying to find something like a Christian church or something, right? So anyway, I sat and I meditated and I sat for 10 minutes a day, 6 days a week. I'm okay. And then I remember going into it and, after 2.5 months or so, I just had this moment of intense frustration of I just sit here thinking the whole time, I can't do this. This is doing nothing. This sucks. And then I looked back at the rest of my life outside of the meditation practice. And I realized that I had, till that moment, for my whole life, 27 years, I had, intense, I would have highs and lows, and I would fall into these kind of valleys, these pits in my life, maybe sometimes twice a week, every week, every other week. They would pretty regularly come. I was briefly a teacher and I did some panic attacks in the high school parking lot, different things like that. I would fall into these pits. And I realized that for the last 2 months, I had not fallen into any of those pits at all. And that was a huge game changer for me. I mean, it was really, really big. So I said, oh, this is working. it feels like I'm just sitting here thinking the whole time. But obviously something's happening. There's more equanimity. I'm able to interrupt the downward spiral in a way that I wasn't able to for the rest of my life.
Huge. It's like a reset.
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you start with 5 minutes? Did you start with 10 minutes? What did you start with?
Well, I had done this yoga teacher training where she had us meditate twice in the whole month. It was a month-long intensive. She just had us meditate twice in the whole month. The first time was for 30 minutes and the next time was for an hour. So it was like, whoa. I didn't want to do either of those lengths of time. That was very uncomfortable for probably all of us in that situation. But I was like, okay, I can do 10 minutes. Like if I could do that. So I started with 10 minutes, but I do recommend people start with really small. You can start with 1 minute. You can start with 3. I have a 3-minute meditation on my website. You can 5 minutes is a great way to start. Start with 5 minutes for months and see how that feels. But there is research that shows that it is a dose dependent activity. Just kind of like, I kind of think of it as like, it's just like exercise. We know that, yeah, sure, it'd be great if I was going in and doing a 90-minute, throwing tires around in the gym. Sure, that might be great. But I also know it's good if I just go for a walk around the block, yes. Right? So if you're not doing anything, it's good to like go do the meditation equivalent of go for a walk around the block for a while first and build up some strength and stamina and ability to do this thing.
And when you are practicing mindfulness, do you do it with music? Do you do it with somebody that's guiding you? What do you do currently?
I never do music. That's interesting. That's not something I've done, but so I do a sitting meditation practice. I did sort of creep into mindfulness in college. I started going for runs without any headphones or things like that. I started a yoga practice. Those are our mindfulness practices, right? As we start to bring our attention to just what we're doing, we can start with walking and things like that. But when I started meditating, I started with guided meditations at first. And I really do recommend that people start with a guided meditation. But you have to be careful because there are a lot of guided meditations out there that are full of music and talking, and they're really interesting, but they're not, you don't ever get some space and time to practice bringing your attention back to the present moment on your own. So when you do find a guided meditation practice, check to make sure that it's spacious. There's teachers I recommend on the Insight meditation app, which is a great free app, and other things like the Plum Village app is another wonderful free app. But a guided meditation is a good way to start because you just sit there and you get a little lost on your own usually.
Beautiful. And I love that you bring in there too that our time to be quiet and reset can happen in so many different ways, whether it's yoga or qigong or going for a run. It can look different for different people.
Yeah, exactly. I think going for a walk and leaving your phone at home is such a great way you can do it and just let your mind wander. You can do it and practice some mindfulness. You might even say, okay, for this street, I'm going to practice feeling my breath coming in and out and just looking around and when my mind wanders, bringing my attention back to this street and observing what's happening. And you might do that, So the difference between walking with the intention to practice mindfulness and just going for a walk, for instance. So if you're going for a walk, and usually when I go for a walk, I'm just going for a walk because I practice mindfulness at home and I let my mind wander. I think about things. I observe what's happening in my neighborhood. I look at the dog, whatever. There's no intention to try to direct my attention in any particular way. But if you're practicing, say you want to go for a walk, you want to go pick up your kid and you want to intentionally practice mindfulness, you might set a specific length of time or a specific place where you're doing it, right? So you're very intentional. You then, might, as you breathe in, say to yourself, I am here. As you breathe out, I'm in the now, right? I'm in the here, I'm in the now. You might just focus your attention on feeling your breath. You choose something that's in the present moment, like the feeling of your footsteps or your breath, what you're seeing. And the practice of bringing our attention back means that with kindness and with curiosity, we notice when we're like, oh yeah, like the plumber's going to call into, oh wait, I'm thinking about that. And then it's not that you're trying to stop your thinking, but you're just trying to get some ability to direct your attention, right? Because the brain thinks just like the ears hear and the eyes see. So you're not trying to stop it, but you're trying to say, okay, I can think about that later. Right now, I'm going to bring my attention back to the feeling of breathing in or the feeling of stepping. And so you kind of interrupt the thinking and then come back to what you're consciously experiencing. Does that make sense?
Totally. And I love that for me, as you talk about that, I'm in the here, I'm in the now. I love that one. It feels very settling to me.
Yeah, I love that. That's from the tradition of Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh, the Plum Village tradition. And they have little gathas or little sayings that you can do to kind of help you become in the present moment. And one that I really like is sometimes I do this if I'm walking and I want to become more present. As I breathe in, I say to myself, I have arrived. Breathing out, I am home. So breathing in, I have arrived. Breathing out, I am home. And then you can say in the here and the now. But yeah, like, oh, I am at home right here and now, wherever I am, I have arrived. There's nowhere I need to get to. I have already arrived in the present moment. That one is really grounding for me.
It's so beautiful. Yeah. And so different from what many of us experience in parenting, which is just the rush onto the next thing. I think often we feel as if we're never really home.
Yes. We're always doing the next thing, and the to-do list is like incredible. Yeah. I know. It's a lot. And it's interesting because not only can it lead to us being reactive and like kind of being more reactive and stressed maybe than we would like to be, but also I think the idea of being present, right? We tend to think, I don't know, we tend to think like, oh, I'm going to get all these things done. We're trained to get so much done. We're trained towards achievement from an early age. And so we're always kind of like, then we get into parenting, we're like, okay, even if you're like staying home with your kid, you're like, okay, I'm going to get the vegetables for dinner and then I'm going to do this. I'm going to pop that load of laundry, whatever, like you're getting things done. And then we tend to think to ourselves, okay, and then we're going to go on some vacation. I'm going to go somewhere and I'm going to really be present. I'm really going to be with my kid. I'm going to just soak it all in. I'm going to really be present. But then we get to that vacation and we can't. We discover that we can't because what we practice grows stronger. We have trained our brain to always be checking things off the list and going and doing. And so that's what our brain is good at. And then it is not good at being present and paying attention to the present moment, paying attention to our surroundings, to the here and the now, to slowing down. And so it really, I think that's a real motivator for me to just really to practice it every day. A little bit of, I'm just going to slow myself down for this amount of time, this dedicated amount of time, so that when I want to, when I choose to, I can really be present and my brain is not trained to just be on a treadmill.
And I think when we do that, it gives our kids permission to start to live that sort of life too. And I think eventually our kiddos, not to add more guilt to the whole parenting thing, but I think that what they see is what they end up living too. So if it's like, okay, This is just mom or dad or whoever my caregiver is, slowing down, being present, that's how they learn over time as well.
Yeah. And it's not like you have to like be the Dalai Mama or something, you know what I mean? Like you could still watch TV and scroll on your phone sometimes, but like, it also is great to model. Yeah, exactly what you're saying. Like it also model that your life doesn't end when you have kids. Like you can, you're still, you can be present. You can be present with them and really listen. Also, maybe you are, you also have times where you are not with them and you go out with friends and you go do things that feel good to you. And that is also all filling your cup so that you can be a really much more effective and compassionate parent.
Talking about this whole parenting thing, we actually had a parent write in a question to us. And after having read your book, I was like, oh, this question is perfect for Hunter. So can I read the question to you and then we can kind of work it out together? So she says, we have clear rules in our house about screen time, 1 hour a day after homework and 2 hours on the weekend. My 8-year-old son loses his mind every time screen time ends. I start off calmly, but I quickly lose my temper. I end up exhausted and angry at him and at myself. I just want to throw away his gaming console. I wish I'd never given it to him.
And I think frustrating.
Yeah, it totally does. I think it's related to so much and what we've already touched on today is that for so many parents, they want to stay calm. So I think we can all, in some capacity, relate to what this mama is going through, where it's like, okay, time to get off your game, time to turn Netflix off, whatever it might be. And then things just escalate quickly and suddenly we're yelling and we're doing exactly what we don't want to do.
Yeah. I can so relate to that because actually, like right now, last night with my 14-year-old, I asked her to, put the phone away in the car and she kind of gave me some fuss and then she just turned it off and left it in her lap. And I was like, asked you to actually put it away, not just have it off in your lap. And I explained why. Anyway, the struggle continues with the screen stuff because they are so addictive. And if you're walking a middle path, right, of parenting, like you engage with it because this is part of our life, right? And so you want to model that having a relationship with these devices that's healthy, but it's hard because you have like the best minds in Silicon Valley who got,
Totally.
to have the psychology kind of stacked against you. So that said, with this mom and this situation, yeah, the reactivity and the yelling isn't helping. Obviously, like it's escalating the situation. So I would certainly recommend doing, everything she can to calm her reactivity, and I've talked about that in a lot of different places, but it's, it really is about kind of, I would recommend that she, in that moment, recognize what's happening, remove herself to take a moment to calm herself, and then use some resources, the 3 R's: recognize, remove yourself if you need to, and then your resources including extended exhales, which are kind of like a biohack to bring us out of stress response, and, maybe some mantras like I am helping my child and this is not an emergency, things like that. So she should really certainly work on calming her reactivity. But it sounds like this is a problem that's recurring again and again and again.
It does.
So in mindful parenting, like what I realize is that with raising good humans is that, we need both the inner work to calm our reactivity and we need the communication skills, right? Because I've definitely been in the place where I've calmed myself down and then I don't know what to say. So that's also in there are some really wonderful classic effective communication skills like iMessages, reflective listening. And the one I would pull out for here is win-win problem solving. So this is what I'm doing. We'll see with my daughter if this situation keeps going, right? Is that, we're having a conflict. We're having a conflict about this thing, right? So we need to figure out a way to resolve our conflict so all of our needs are being met. Excuse me. You can edit out me wiping my nose. We want to resolve our conflict so all of our needs are being met. So I would recommend that she and whoever is in her family, besides this child, maybe if there's a parenting partner or something, say, we need to have a time where we talk with you about screen time. We're going to talk about the conflict. We want to make sure we're both happy with the results of whatever we come up with. You might have to do a little selling of this if this isn't the way you've resolved conflicts before. And then you find a time that's a no problem zone, not in this moment to talk about the conflict. I recommend you get a big piece of paper. You write down what are your needs. Your needs are to, probably just to have him peacefully get off screen time, right? Like that's it. That's probably what she needs. It's not like she's trying to stop it altogether, but I mean, that might be a step she has to take eventually if he really is having extreme problems with it. And his need is to, probably what is his need? She can just ask him, what does he need around this? He wants to have an hour of screen time every day. So but it's a, dear child, I feel frustrated because every time, it seems like every time we have a fight about the end of screen time, I feel so frustrated that I've been thinking about getting rid of it altogether. I know you don't want that. I want us to figure out how to do this. So everyone sits down and we say, we're going to write down ideas. We're not going to talk about whether the ideas are good or bad yet. We're just going to write down as many ideas as we can. And then we'll talk about them. We'll see if we can come up with some solutions. What ideas do you have about it? He might say, maybe I should have unlimited screen time. So she writes that down, unlimited screen time. Maybe, I should have my own iPad in my room, right? Like just write down every idea without judging it. You write down your ideas, write down as many ideas as you can, have some, maybe you have a timer, maybe do you have technological drops, cut off. You write down all the ideas you can. And then you go, when you're done with all the ideas without evaluating them at all, then you evaluate them at the end and you say, okay, let's look at, does it meet our needs? We'll check if it meets our needs. We'll just cross it out if it doesn't, and a question mark if we have to talk about it a little more. So that helps you go through the list pretty quickly. You get to see what might be viable. You talk about it a little more. You use respectful language. You stay calm. You listen to your child. And then you come up with a solution. You'll start to see a solution that will arise that meets both everybody's needs. And you say, okay, let's try this for a week or for 4 days and see how this goes. And then you back off and you give your kid a chance to do what you said you would do. So that's what I would recommend. Win-win problem solving. I know that doesn't work for everybody. I know screen time can be a real big issue. I've had Victoria Dunkley on the podcast. There are, regimes where people do take away screen time, and, it can really change the way kids' behavior, and all of those things are. It is a tricky issue because it is so sticky and addictive, but that's what I would recommend to start with.
Hunter, there's a few things that I absolutely love about what you just covered there. I love the iMessages, because what we could do is say, like, you won't get off your screen, which the moment we shift onto the kid, or just like me, if you were like, Tanya, you were late for our meeting today, immediately you're on the defensive, right? And then we're not having an open conversation anymore. So I love those eyes that you put in there with the kiddo. And then the other thing that I absolutely love is that you moved it from focusing on the problem to focusing on the need, which is, it's huge. It's such a difference.
Yeah, because, we want to think about, whenever we have a problem, someone's needs aren't being met. So that's, if we can focus on that, that gives our kids more, if we can talk instead of like, you did this, you were behaving this way, you're not listening. If we can say, I feel frustrated, I get stressed with the yelling, my shoulders get tight, and I feel sad when we're this, having this much conflict. There's not so much to argue with.
Absolutely. And I agree too that when it's a repeated issue, and it sounds like a repeated issue, it's an unsolved problem. So this is something that we need to solve together with this kiddo to go, what do we want to do here? And to me, that's the only way we actually raise problem solvers.
Yeah, it's actually so much. I mean, the idea of win-win problem solving is so much more effective than other methods, because A, it's fair, right? Everybody's needs are taken into account. And B, you end up not having to be so much of the enforcer, because they have some buy-in, right? Because they're involved in the problem solving process. And then also, like, you're teaching your kid, rather than kind of like, I'm the parent and I say so and this is what we're doing, which builds resentment over time, right? Like, that's where adolescent rebellion comes from, is that right there. Is kind of unskillful means. Instead of learning that the one with the most power wins, they go into their adulthood with a skill of, what are you needing? This is what I'm needing. Let's figure out how we can work it out, which is so much more applicable to any workplace that will ever come into contact with.
And if you don't see it at home or with your teachers or with another peer or another adult in your world, where do you ever learn it? How do you ever know how to do that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So conflicts, and then it can bring us closer together, right? Like, they're inevitable, they're part of life, they're normal. but yeah, can be a valuable experience.
Yeah. So Hunter, your daughter is older, not to make her the guinea pig of this show. You're like, oh, listen to what we spoke about with Tanya today. But with an older kid, so she's 18, I imagine that this collaborative problem solving would be, or win-win situation would be something that happens more naturally at this point. You're probably not going to be writing down each other's ideas.
Yeah, that's a beautiful piece about win-win. So if you can start it when they're younger, I've had people even do it with 2-year-olds and kids who are pre-verbal, and when you write down the things, they love it when you write it down. Anyway, but yeah, when you start out this way, then it morphs into a conversation, and it can morph into, like, this is how we solve problems, and we talk it out, right? And then we figure out what our needs are. Yeah, it becomes shorthand at this point when you're talking about a 14-year-old and an 18-year-old.
Absolutely. Your RAIN acronym in your book that you speak about, could you walk us through the RAIN acronym for this mama?
Sure. I love RAIN. RAIN is an acronym in the mindfulness world. It was popularized very much by the psychologist Tara Brach. And RAIN stands for, it's just an acronym for taking care of difficult feelings. And it stands for recognize, accept, or allow. I is investigate, N is nourish or nurture with self-compassion. So recognizing it is, that's basically name it to tame it, right? Which is, Dr. Dan Siegel popularized name it to tame it. And they've done fMRI studies about naming your emotions, recognizing your emotions. And when you name or recognize your emotions, the activity in the amygdala, which is the seat of our emotional center, fight, flight, or freeze, actually really significantly drops. So they've seen that in the brain.
It's incredible.
It really, really works to just take down the temperature. So we can do it. That's the heart of reflective listening, which is the other communication skill I talked about, is recognizing someone else's emotions, but we can do it for ourselves. So we say, okay, I'm feeling worried. I'm feeling anxious right now. Hello. And Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh, he would say, you say, hello, anxiety. I'm here for you. I'm going to take care of you. And he would say, you imagine holding it in your arms like a baby.
Oh.
Which is so sweet, right? Because that kind of combines recognize and accept or allow. And that's the key is what we resist persists. We know this to be true as we try to push things away. So if we say, okay, worry is here, anxiety is here. Hello, anxiety. I see you here. It's you can even say to yourself, it's okay that you're here, and or even you can say, to practice accepting or allowing, you can practice saying, yes, 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 it's here, right? Rather than, you can feel the difference between saying that and no, 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 right? As I say, I can feel myself tightening, even just talking about it. But if I say yes, 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 it's like an opening, right? There's some acceptance there. So it that really helps us to release tension, to just not try to block it up. I think of it as not pushing the beach ball down under the water where it's gonna go into our body and cause havoc for the rest of our lives. We don't want to do that. So we accept it. And those two by themselves, that's so powerful. I mean, just go ahead.
Yeah. And I think, Hunter, when we slow down, so the mindfulness bit here, we're actually able to recognize, oh, I am feeling a little bit worried, or I am frustrated. But when we're moving all of the time, I think that's when it becomes so reactive.
Yeah, exactly. It takes a minute. It takes a little practice to bring a RAIN practice into your life. And then it can become shorthand. At this point, I can sit down and give myself 60 seconds sometimes and 2 minutes and move, okay, this is here. I see you here. And then investigate is, I wonder why this arose. And this is where we're not going to dive down a big rabbit hole of thinking. We're just going to see what bubbles up. Often it's pretty obvious. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes we want to journal a little bit about something. So recognize, accept, investigate, and then nurture with self-compassion. And this is so important. I'm touching my hand to my heart because that helps me and helps a lot of people, that sense of touch. But just, how can you be kind to yourself about this? This is a hard moment. It's not easy. There's a lot of stress right now. It's frustrating when your kid's upset. This is hard. And just being kind to yourself, being compassionate to yourself, or even saying I'm here for you to yourself. It sounds so hokey, or I'm, trust your goodness, or even, you could even imagine some other being, like a spiritual figure, or even a pet or something, offering their love to you, right? And that all helps us to kind of just get to the other side of processing a difficult feeling. And I really think of this as a digestive system for difficult feelings. And most of us, we're taught, just don't cry, go to your room, just don't have those feelings. And that doesn't work. It leads to all kinds of problems, right? It's yeah. So someone on the podcast gave me this metaphor and I love it so much. It's when you have big upset feelings and it's like you're eating an emotional hamburger, like a big, greasy, giant emotional hamburger, but you have no digestive system. So it's a whole big mess. It's disgusting, right? So RAIN is our emotional digestive system.
I love it. That's so great. Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, I can visualize that perfect.
Okay, good. Sorry, everyone.
No, I love it. No, I'm yes, this makes sense. I think everybody's got it now. So, Hunter, that when using rain, like for this mama with practice, I imagine that this is something you can actually do in the moment. So, turn your game off. I don't want to. I'm not turning it off. I'm hiding the remote. Whatever's happening in the house, I don't know. But in that moment, you can actually go, okay, I'm feeling frustrated right now. What's happening? I'm not feeling heard. What do I need right now?
Yeah, yeah. I picture this mama kind of just taking a minute, turning away, or going to the bathroom. Whatever, or even just not in the bathroom, like you model it for your kid, right? And maybe even just shaking out some of the tension, those long exhales, what do I need? But yeah, offering yourself that compassion and recognizing those things, recognizing what's happening is really key.
So powerful. I love that we have something for in the moment, because really we also know that a child's self-regulation eventually comes from multiple experiences of co-regulation with a safe adult. So I love that we're giving the mama a tool in the moment and also tons of compassion and love. And then we're also giving them a tool outside of the moment to go, how do we come back to this and actually start to look at how we can make the situation work for everybody?
Yeah. Yeah. It takes a lot of tools. I think our expectations for ourselves are so high. Like our expectation is that we will be able to be there through every upset and tantrum, and we will be this calm, nurturing presence, and we will be able to help our kids have healthy emotional intelligence. But that all requires a lot more than just choosing that, right? And it requires us practicing that, or requires us living that. And that does take effort. It does take investment in the front end, but it really does pay off in the long term.
And I think in your book too, you talk about the fact that we're 100% going to mess up. And
yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
The power of, first of all, showing our kids that we're also human, that they can be human too, that we're messy, and also repair, the power of repair that I think so many of us also struggle with if we came from a different generation with more authoritarian parents.
Yeah. I remember feeling that way, like, oh, I guess I have to apologize to my kid. That feels wrong. Like I'm not the strong adult. Like am I being respected? Am I being disrespected? All of those things. I certainly had all those thoughts in my head, but I mean, now I really know that like, that's the best way to teach your kid to apologize is to just apologize to your kid when you need to. And it can feel, for a lot of us raised in an authoritarian situation, and feel it can trigger feelings of like losing power in moments like that. And that is something for us to explore and to kind of work with. I think I still get some of those feelings like, it's not easy, right? There's a lot to process in human emotion. So, we were talking about repairing. I think that just when we remember that it is the connection that drives our cooperation, right? That drives everything. It becomes so important. I know it's interesting because then with the screen time thing, because those are like little disconnection devices. So it's so hard. Like we do have to hold those boundaries of it. Just kind of circling back to my night last night. Oy.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you need to, when I'm, and you might need to fill this in for me, but in your book, you talk about kind of, if you squeeze an orange, what's going to come out is orange juice. So that metaphor really stuck with me, because I know that when I'm stressed, I'm more likely to react quicker and I'm less likely to apologize as well. So it's like, oh, we've spoken about the screen 100 times. It's unacceptable. Turn it off. Whereas when my world slows down a little bit and I can actually feel my feelings and go, oh, like that didn't feel good. That whole interaction didn't feel good. I'm far more likely to repair.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why we have to have so much compassion for ourselves, because we're humans living in a world, and it's hard to be a human living in this world, right? There's so many stressors on us. There's so much happening. We may be facing things in our day that are scary or upsetting, all kinds of things. And then we may not be our best selves with our kids. We're definitely not going to be our best selves with our kids 100% of the time. But that's okay. It's okay for them to see like multiple sides of you. It's okay for them to, to have moments where everything is not hunky dory. Like sometimes I think as we become more focused on our kids' emotional health, we become scared to be human around them. We become sort of robotic in this role, like of the perfect mom or dad, right? And it's actually much healthier for us to just be authentically who we are, and to role model that humanness. It is messy, but yeah, that's why we have to practice a lot of self-compassion. We're going to make mistakes at every age and stage, and so we have to say, okay, hey, what I say to myself, especially because I've written a book, I do this teacher training, all this stuff, it's like, and I'm going to mess up, but I say to myself, okay, you have permission to be human, Hunter, and it's okay. You're allowed to be human. And that helps our kids have resilience ultimately is, being able to weather those storms. But we always want to come back and repair and reconnect. And it's never, never too late to do that.
It's huge. I think what I love about your entire message, Hunter, is that I think the prevailing parenting message out there right now is, I wouldn't say gentle parenting, but it's stay calm. Stay calm with your kid. The importance of co-regulation, the science is coming out in it, how vital it is. But I don't think for many parents, they can actually connect with that. Whereas what I'm hearing you say today is just to be gentle with the feelings that come up, to nurture it and go, it's okay to have these feelings. What do I want to do next? Who do I want to be in the next moment? It's not about staying calm. It's not about staying gentle. It's about being real with your child.
Yeah. And also because stay calm can backfire bad. You're like, oh, Tanya and Hunter told me to stay calm, so I'm going to stay calm. Calm. I'm calm, darling. I'm so calm. I'm calm. I'm calm. And then you're just like explosively angry because we're suppressing all of our feelings. It's actually much healthier to say, I'm feeling really annoyed with this behavior right now. And I need a break, or whatever. Like, it's much healthier to just name the feelings as they're arising for ourselves. And that actually is good because it teaches our kids some healthy emotional intelligence. Yeah, you're allowed to be human.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so last question for you. For our kiddos, and then also for our parents who are listening today. First of all, like I said, Hunter's book is amazing. And it has a wonderful journal that goes along with it, which is really fantastic. Where do they start? So for our kids, it's a two-part question. If we want to teach our kids some of these skills, and for our parents, if they're like, what's the very first thing I should do? What do you suggest?
That's a tough question because everybody needs something different, and that's, in raising good humans, there are a lot of different skills that people need. But I guess I would just say, in some ways, self-compassion is the best way to start because you're already a parent. You've already made mistakes in your parenting journey. And so offer yourself some kindness and compassion and say, okay, and that permission to be human, giving yourself that, I think, is a great way to start to kind of just regulate you. And then to just maybe start to think about inviting in some pauses and some slowing down so that you can get some buffer around life to be able to absorb it and to be able to process it. I think so. Some of that's so important. In the last chapter of Raising Good Humans, it's not talked about that much, but I taught a lot about kind of like slowing down our schedules, kind of, simplifying our homes a little bit. Those are also even great places to start to just kind of slow things down to get a little more space to handle everything and process and have more understanding on everything that's happening with your child so that you can maybe have more capacity to listen, more capacity to be present. Those can be great places to start as well.
So powerful. I know you talk about Kim Payne in that last chapter of yours, and I absolutely love his work too. I think that when our homes are busy and our schedules are busy, it's so hard to see who we want to be in different moments. And so I love it. It's like, how do we simplify so that we can take those pauses? And I think that that's the gift that we give our children too.
Yeah. We have to, and that assumes a lot. I know people may be working 2 jobs or maybe very stressed and may not have a lot of resources. But yeah, to then hold that maybe as a North Star of saying, when I have a choice point, I'm going to make a choice to just do one less class with my kid this spring. So we have a little more space and time and buffer to be able to breathe and slow down and be more present for each other.
I know in our family, we started by saying, because we're busy, we started by saying Sunday afternoons. We're going back to what it was like in the 80s growing up in South Africa, where it was just slow. It's like we don't say yes to things on a Sunday afternoon. Whereas before it was just, there was so much happening. So I think for every family just going, where, even if it's just going to bed a little bit earlier or watching one less show and doing something that actually nurtures me, where do I start? Where are the tiny little points that I can start?
Yeah, I love that.
Hunter, thank you so much. We will link the book in the description below. So powerful. There's so much in here, and I love it because it's so tool-based. This is a book that parents, it's not a, you know, when you get those, parenting books are all great, but when you get those books that are so thick and you kind of have to wade through so much to actually get to like what I have to do, I found that you jumped in so quickly, which was so great.
I'm very practical. I remember just being very frustrated, being like, but how? How do you do this thing? So there's a lot of like, how? Here's how you can do this thing.
Absolutely. Which is funny. I was actually talking to Kim Payne, and he was saying that parenting books by itself probably isn't the best model because parents are always short on time.
Yeah.
And so you have these books, and I have to read the book to do what I need to do with my kid. Whereas I think shorter tool-based books with the journal are just fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tanya. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. I really appreciate it.
So fun. Thanks, Hunter.